I don't know about you, but I love stories. And I'm a storyteller. I'm a master storyteller, especially about miracles. At prayingmiracles.com, there are so many miraculous stories that I've shared, that I've experienced firsthand, and also stories of others who have experienced miracles firsthand. And there's nothing more exciting, and we can't wait to tell everybody. And that's what this story is. But this story is out of the Bible. And I really think that it's going to encourage you today, no matter what's going on in your life. And it's about the eagle. Deuteronomy 32:11 says, "As an eagle stirs up her nest, hovers over its young, spreading out its wings, taking them up, carrying them on its wings, so the Lord alone led him." Now let's go back a bit and talk about how the mother builds her nest. She makes a home, and I think that if you've read anything in on Google or whatever to show what goes into making an eagle's nest, it is phenomenal. But I want to lay it out here for you so you can understand how this applies to us in our Christian walk. Now the nest can be up to 13 feet deep and can sometimes be seen as far as a mile away. It can be 8+ feet wide and can weigh, you ready for this? 1.1 tons. They have to find the right tree. That's for sure. That's going to be able to carry that kind of weight. So there's a lot of work put into building that nest. And they reuse that nest. They build on it every year. And I can see why, because it's got to take a lot of work just to build that nest initially. Now this is a 3-layered operation. The first layer is a scaffolding. Just like building anything else, you have to have your structure. And when the parents build that structure, build that nest, there's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort involved. The second layer then is filled with everything prickly. They find thorns and thistles and straw, anything that's going to make the nest uncomfortable. And then the top layer, the third layer, is moss and some skin possibly, feathers. She even pulls her own feathers out and puts them into the nest to make it ready for the new hatched eggs. Now when this is all done, she then waits for the birthing process. And when the time comes for those babies to leave that nest, and this is where that verse in Deuteronomy comes in, she comes to the nest with no food. And the babies are screaming. I'm sure we've heard eagles and what a high-pitched sound that they make. Imagine those babies, and they want food, and mama's there, and she's hovering over them, and there's no food. So what does she do? Instead of giving them food, she begins to scoop out all the softness in the nest. She scoops out the feathers and anything else that made that nest comfortable. So now those babies are on thorns and bristle and things that are very uncomfortable. Relate this to the time in your lives when we are tested, and sometimes we think we're really uncomfortable. And, God is kind of pushing us out of that comfort zone, just as the mother eagle does. And this is also very often a time in our lives when we start blaming the enemy. And we say, the enemy did this to me, and we're going to pray against the enemy, and the devil's after me, and everything else, which basically, in essence, is giving him credit for something that he had absolutely nothing to do with. And this is a whole other subject we're going to teach in videos down the road. Now, we learn how to fly. Now we're going to relate this back to us. We learn how to fly when we learn how to hear the voice of God. And the teachings on how to hear the voice of God in our spirit, as opposed to the one voice that we hear in our mind that we know is not coming from God, we must learn to differentiate between the two. Now, if God stirs up the nest a little bit, and we're a little bit uncomfortable, it's time for us to think big, not little. It's time for us to realize God's got something He wants to teach me. God's got something in store for me. Because things don't feel, I'm not comfortable right now. I know that He's spoken to my heart and He wants me to step out, but I may be holding back because I'm thinking I'm not adequate. I'm not good enough. I don't really know how to fly on my own. I don't have somebody to help me. Again, back to the ego. God has allowed the nest to be stirred up, just as He does with the mother eagle, stirring up the nest by making it uncomfortable. Now the mother eagle waits for the winds to start to blow. And then she lets out a terrifying scream, and she leaps over the nest and hovers over the nest. The reason she does this is she wants her babies to see that they can fly. Because before, she would just leave the nest and she would go get food and come back, and they didn't really see the process of her flying. But now she's hovering over the nest and showing them that they need to come out of that nest to open their wings and to soar and to fly. Now, mother eagles have up to 7,000 feathers, so it is not easy for them to hover. It is not easy for them to stand in that one position, or to hold that one position so that her babies can see. And yet she does this because she's teaching them a lesson and encouraging those babies. The wind in our life at this point is blowing. That Holy Spirit wind encouraging us to leave that nest. In Jeremiah 29:11, this is one of my favorite verses, and it says, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you." That's God speaking. I know the thoughts that I think towards you. They are thoughts of peace and not of evil. When God is trying to kick us out of that nest, it is not to harm us in any way, any shape, any form. It is for our good. Because the rest of the verse says, to give us a future and a hope. He wants us to get out of that nest. He wants us to soar. And He creates the circumstances so that we will do just that. And sometimes we think that when the storms come, that they are there to hurt us and they are there to destroy us. But it's not that at all. It's to test us, to test our strength, and to move forward as God originally called and spoke to our heart. Sometimes we think that if it doesn't happen right away, it can't be God. No, He wants us to step out. He wants us to move forward. He wants us to spread our wings. So when you feel that this wind of the precious Holy Spirit is blowing in your life, you need to go with it. You need to soar with it. You may not even know exactly where it's going, but you're taking that first step of faith of what you heard spoken in your heart by God to your heart when He said it's time to move on. It's time to move forward. God is looking for those who are available. He is looking for those who will step out of their comfort zone. He is looking for those who truly want to soar, and they're not put off by some uncomfortableness or something that may creep up. And they certainly are not blaming Satan for whatever is happening in their lives, because he has nothing to do with it. God is stirring up the nest. God is more interested in your character than your comfort. I'm Carol Graham, and I'm with PrayingMiracles.com, where there is lots of things for you to go over and to be encouraged by, posts and videos, and also on this YouTube channel. So I encourage you to not only go to the website, PrayingMiracles.com, but to also subscribe to this YouTube channel. And don't forget to hit that bell so that you are notified when there are new YouTubes available. I thank you and I appreciate you, and I ask that you leave your feedback, ask your questions. I will answer them as quickly as I can, but I will get back to you. Thank you for tuning in to PrayingMiracles.com and Praying for Miracles on YouTube.